So, I'm going to discuss a four-part model that is introduced by Halpern in learning to think critically. In this model, Halpern proposes a critical thinking instruction with four parts. First one is she suggests that you have to explicitly learn the skills of critical thinking. How do you learn? First thing is you can learn only when somebody teaches you. Yes, or you learn it by doing on your own. Then you have to develop the attitude. Disposition means your willingness or the attitude, how you look at things for effortful thinking and learning. You know that when you become a critical thinker, you have to put in lot of effort to learn, to think, and to learn. And then you have to do learning activities in such a way that so, as a teacher, I must develop activities such a way that the students will be able to transfer. That means they will be able to transfer whatever thinking skills I teach them in their everyday life. And then they make metacognitive monitoring very open. So, openly, I must make them to think about their thinking. So, as a teacher, so four things are very important to me. If I are you as a teacher, you should learn the skills of critical thinking and also make the students to learn. Number two is develop an attitude, positive attitude towards effortful thinking. It is not effortless. You need to have effort. And then learning. Next one, you have to change your activities in such a way that whatever syllabus, whatever lessons you have to apply dimensions of thought like 35 strategies, and you where I can apply all this. Like you have to think and in change your lessons accordingly, and then you should make the learners to think aloud about their thinking. So like yesterday we did, no, what is your perception? Then one skill at a time we have to do. Then this is an approach to critical thinking, a skills approach to critical thinking. So it is usually believed that the thinking is involves many things. So what are the examples of thinking? According to the author here, something that is somebody is commonly generic is common skills, while when somebody thinks is we read something semantic is sentences, how are the sentences arranged, then as a result conclusion like that, then we come to a conclusion. Then we see is there any contradictory evidence given, like yesterday I have form A B C kind of, is there any contradiction? Then we also think about our thinking. If you are a newcomer or a novice, means somebody who is starting to monitor their thinking, then you look at your thinking level. What is my personal opinion, and what need do I require like that? And then you take a decision finally and see the alternatives. What are the risks and what are the consequences? Like elements of reasoning we were discussing, and then we developed a method to select. Why should I select this? Elements of reasoning again. And then you have a choice. What are the consequences of my action? Like that, all these things which you have already discussed are done. And even recall some experience, some data. Then we develop the skills for new techniques, and then you whatever new knowledge we gain, for example you're learning and apply to the old new knowledge, any information data information is given, and then what are the research benefits, all these things understanding required, especially with critical thinking. Then when you become a critical thinker, you know how to present a coherent argument. That means logically present your ideas, like you know the elements of reasoning, applying intellectual standards, and then intellectual traits, and then even in instruction also, that the correct language that it is needed, which we will be doing later on. What is the language that needs to be used? And then we use the diagrams and the data. All this we give. How many people agree? How many people disagree? All this. So all these are the critical thinking skills. So when I start teaching critical thinking to you, or when you believe as a teacher that I can teach critical thinking, you're already making two assumptions. What are the two assumptions? First assumption is there are some set of skills. There are such skills that I can identify, that I can teach to my students. Then, if at all I already recognized, And if at all I am able to recognize and allow you to apply all that and teach you to apply, and the students, by doing this, the students will become very effective thinkers. So there are two assumptions. First, my assumption is there are set of skills that can be taught, and which I have already recognized, which I am following one model like Richard Paul. Of course, in Asia, he has different model, and then I can teach you to apply these. And once you apply, once you start recognize, you become a critical thinker. These two assumptions will know whether they're proved or not. Once you understand, it's okay. And some of you may gain the knowledge but may not apply. So my assumption, that is the difference between performance and competence. Performance means you can do something, but competency means doing it. So you know what are the skills. So you walk the talk or not. That's what it decided later on. So one part of the model for learning to become is how to use the skills, how to recognize when the skills are needed. So first thing is, the first model is recognizing the skills, and then how to use the skills in critical thinking, how to use them, and how to recognize the skill that we need to develop. Yes, so first the first thing, is learning how to use the skills in critical thinking. We are at that level. Then again, as you start using, then only you realize how to, what is needed. You have to know how to recognize that particular skill is needed for me. So even when I was correcting, some of you are monitoring, yeah, I'm not doing this kind of. So what are the disposition means, what is your attitude, how you look at things. Somebody is having that in innateness to think. Yes, what is your attitude towards effortful thinking? Are you willing to think effort with effort and learning? So there's a one. They say, all our dignity lies in thought. You cannot become a thinker just by reading book or by learning what is useful. Unless you use it, you must use whatever you learn, and you're motivated, you're willing to do that. Yes, you have to walk the talk. Next one is performance and competence distinction. Performance is what? You know about it. You can do it. And then competence is you know how to do it. You're doing it. Yes, so people can do and what they actually do. I can speak English, but I don't speak English outside the classroom. You can take part in group discussions, but when really group discussion takes place, you keep silent. That is competence. I teach you to speak English, and you think you know speaking English, but when you really situation, you are not able to do, and we have to identify why it's not happening. So there's a lot of difference between knowing and ability to do, that is can do but not do. Yes, so that's why I say you can do it, I can do, like that we tell the students to think. So critical thinking is an attitude, so develop. So Sears and Parsons, like ethics, this is ethics, morals. And there are others who said Fassilo and Giarno that people who have positive in their study, somebody who is willing to you apply critical thinking showed greater gains from the instruction. So those who not like some students may not be so that willing, and they haven't showed any gains from the critical thinking instruction. So your attitude is very important when you learn the course on critical thinking, and you have the willingness to plan. So, for example, so if you plan, you become very quiet now. In the exams too, when the students start writing, immediately they start writing without even planning. When I asked a student to write an essay, they don't plan, they start writing the first paragraph. Then I ask them stop and make an like your project. So you what to plan, how to plan, you learn now. What is the purpose of the essay I'm asked to write? What is the data, information? How do I arrange? What is the decision? What is my argument? What words I have to use to persuade somebody? All these things will be working later. And the flexibility. Yesterday we discussed intellectual traits. That means you do not have conformity. Intellectual conformity means you are close your mind. And because I think I'm always, that's the way I do always. I don't want to change. I teach by lecturing. I don't want to do that. Instead, I can do. a lecture here. I can record my lecture here and upload. Like somebody who doesn't come to class can always listen and see what they missed out. So I have an open mind to suspend my previous judgment, and I learn more things. I gather more information, and then I try to address the problems. Like as a teacher, similarly, you are open to new ideas, willing to think in a different way. See the last line, willing to think in new ways and based on the evidence and stick it with the task, whatever options are given, even when there are different options for me. Next one, persistence. So, you taking risk is very important, and you take the risk, and you persistence means patience, intellectual patience. So, some of the people start, and some people diligently do. You have to do a lot of hard work, and then you have to complete it. So sometimes we take a difficult task and you don't even want to start. You take up the project, you don't want to start the thinking process, then like an ostrich escaping. Then there are beginning itself you are defeated, and then somebody starts it and before you complete it you stop it. So but some people who start the work and you may be tired, and you know the reward, there's a reward at the completion of the work. For example, you take up a mathematics sum and you don't want to look at the shortcuts and all that, you do projects. So if a problem cannot be done in 10 minutes, somehow I'll solve it, or you may leave it and ask copy from others. So fourth one is you're willing to correct. So there is courage, intellectual courage. You're willing to admit your mistakes, change your mind when the evidence changes. So this is based on the new evidence, you know. So for example, when scientists take part in debates, they come up with some assumptions, some belief. Others, when they're convinced by others' beliefs, they change. They say, "Yes, your argument has a point. I think I." So, and they never look back at their old idea. They go with their new ideas. This is what they do. So we know that we all make mistakes. One, for example, Sir Brown John, I think he started with the desalination project. He thought that you can purify the water from salt water. He tried to do sedimentation, but he failed. He realized that's not so, and he left it. But that led others to build on his knowledge. So it doesn't mean that you make mistakes and somebody builds on it. It's okay, but he continued to do and try different ways. So you also change your mind when the conclusion. For example, somebody said the earth was spherical, but the people were close-minded. And in the past, in Christianity, they said that the God can only be a male. So when you look at that particular time, it was told to me by Dr. Eric Miller, an American. He said that only godmothers were there. So all these female gods have become godmothers. But now people are willing to accept, and you see praying women too in that religion now. So it was not so. Those people had conformity, they didn't change their views. Then previously, now if you look at religion or traditions, or even in, let us think, that is personal example, societal examples, but we look at science and technology. So new information, sometimes new information comes, we want to correct ourselves. So this is the courage, that is it is not that always somebody has a fickle minded or baffling, the word that is used. It is not that you change your opinion easily, but you change your opinion based on reasoning, that is applying elements of reasoning. So there's a lot of difference between that, and you're always mindful. So you have to attend, you are always mindful means you're looking at your thinking and the process and product of your thought. What happens if I think like this? So your arguments, people are emotional speeches you lose, you get carried away, mob fury, all this leads to what? Now, all this languor, mindfulness, a simple act of drawing novel distinctions. It is the automatic pilot. For example, when you go buy milk in the morning, that's what I did recently. When I went to buy, when I usually I go for walk, on the way I buy milk and I give money to her, and she gives me 1 rupee balance because every day it comes to 99 rupees. That 1 rupee I collect in the milk bag as I come back. And she gives me 1 rupee, luckily, in the beginning itself. So one day while I was coming, I took the milk bag and was returning, and she said, "No, you did not pay the money." Then that she routinely did paying me the balance 1 rupee, and she never remembered. So I showed her the 1 rupee coin,